The stock market tanked and then shot up after the consumer price index was released last week. Now, crypto still acts very correlated with the stock market, and the stock market may be showing a double bottom. Let's look at that. Let's look at Bitcoin, ETH, and then some viewer picks, including Ecomi's Omi token and Drife. Welcome to the Crypto Rain channel. I'm your host, Jay Rain. If you like money in crypto and you're looking for a seasoned investor's take on the crypto market, join the Rainmaker family. Do note, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm a crypto investor myself. Paul invests in many things. We do want to thank our Patreon members. We have a private Discord that only our Patreon members get access to. Now make it rain on that like button, strap in for the show, and let's welcome Paul from Definity.
It's great to be here. Very, very interesting week. As we were talking about last week, that CPI number was going to be pivotal even. And it has been, and the market has reacted in a way that we thought it might. It went down and then shot straight back up again, which is a spike. So we will explore whether this is the low and it's risk on from here.
Yeah, sounds great.
I'm
excited with some people are saying the bull market for crypto isn't for another like 3 years, but just don't buy it. How soon it is? Well, that's what we're looking at the signs to see and to make our best guesses.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at what you were sharing with the stock market and what happened after the CPI index came out.
Yeah. So we can come back because I'm interested in what other people think and why it might be 3 years. I think either it's going to be sort of soon, or I can't see why it would wait until 3 years, because if we've got a risk on rally happening now or soon, it will be linked to the dollar weakening. And unless the dollar is going to rally for the next 3 years, which is possible, but I don't know. I don't think so. There's an interesting element of this, and that is you could also look at what Meta's doing and saying, Meta's now really going to act like a crypto stock in some ways, I think, or correlated to crypto, because what they're doing is so much in that space that the fact that they've been going down so much, Meta stock's been going down so much, is how technology's been shunned for the moment until they actually come out with something that people can use, or are very close to doing that. And I think this is possibly something that the crypto space will it will be very similar in the crypto space, i.e. there's so many very early ideas, and when they're very close to the use case, the market goes, wow, look, that's going to be fantastic, and they start buying in for the future earnings and the future possibilities. So of course you need speculative capital to do that. In order to do that, you need a favorable market condition. And at the moment, interest rates have been going up, as we've been saying, the dollar's been strengthening, and energy prices have been going up, all of which are negative for investors and have caused them to kind of pull back from their investments. So the market's been really focused on CPI, or the consumer price index in the US, which is the level of inflation that determines whether the Fed are going to keep raising interest rates, by how much and for how long. And we've been looking for a kind of end of a trend move for CPI, because it's been my thesis that the Fed have been talking about and expressing such a kind of hawkish view, which means interest rates will go up, and that's twinned with the dollar going up, which causes an interest rate hike in itself, that it was putting too much pressure on the economy, and there would be some pushback, A, from central banks around the world on the Fed, and B, from corporations saying that the dollar's too strong and they can't make money abroad. So the number came out. I didn't really even look at what the number was, because I wasn't that interested. I was more interested in the reaction. So it was considered to be quite a strong number, but you always get the market analysis that tells you what they think it should be, and then you get what the market says it is. And this is the bar. So you see how the market collapsed, and then it made this spike reversal, which is usually a sign that the trend will change. Now, it's a big enough move to be a trend ending signal. it's also made what we call a double bottom, although it's just coming back below the trigger point of that, which is at 34.63. So there's a double bottom there, but we can allow a little bit above and below that for market noise. But if that's the case, this has actually formed a low, and potentially we could be looking at the start of a trend that could take us into a bullish phase into year end. Now, it might not be a straight line, but this is the first sign. So that's really encouraging. If we look at the S&P, it's broken above this downward trend channel, which is, again, the first really good sign. And in terms of the spike reversal pattern, this is possibly a bit clearer because it made a new low and then it rejected it, which is exactly what we want. Now, those people who are long and those people who want to short the market or bought on a short-term trade, I should say, and want to get out because it's rallied quite a lot over a few days, they're taking their profits, the market's coming back down again. There are people who are shorting the market here because they expect it to go lower, and they're looking for much further downside. I mean, it should be noted that it's 19th of October, which 35 years ago was the stock market crash, big stock market crash in 87. So around October, people always get a bit nervous. I mean, this is the actual date, but the market doesn't look like it's going to crash here. And there are more people talking about a crash, which is usually a sign that it's not going to. So if anything was going to happen, I think it would have been last week. So we're not out of the woods, but this is a really good sign. So I'm getting quite excited about what's coming next. If we're looking at this market next week and it's closer to 3,800 over here, then we could be at the beginnings of a very big move, and a big move that will take us through the all-time highs. We're not looking just for a small move. We're looking for a move that takes us all the way back up over 4,800. So we might allow it a little bit of room to trade up and maybe correct so we can be really sure that we've got the low in before we call a major bottom. But it's got to start somewhere, and this is a pretty good sign. If we look at what's going on with the dollar, that's slightly a fly in the ointment because the dollar is not giving a particularly clear signal that it's topped. Actually, I've just accidentally pressed on the Japanese yen, and the dollar yen is an amazing chart. It's just a straight line up, and that's one problem. But that could be a problem with the Japanese yen more than it's a problem with dollar strength. So the yen's weak everywhere. Japanese central bank spent a lot of time talking down the Japanese yen because they want to create inflation because they had deflation. The problem with central banks is they overdo it, and this is what's going on now. They've overdone it, and the market is this sort of great big snowball that's rolling, and they can't stop it. So even though they've talked about intervention, which was here, the market is just still selling Japanese yen like there's no tomorrow, which in some ways is a very bullish signal because currency traders will then use the yen as a funding currency to buy equities. So usually the yen weakening is a good sign that equities are going to go up. So if this is mirroring what the market's going to do, then we've got a big bull market ahead. But let's go back to the dollar index, which is what I meant to talk about. This is still in this upward trend, but I keep talking about this 115 level that has not been breached. That was on the strong non-farm payroll numbers and the strong previous CPI numbers, and now on the current CPI numbers. So we still haven't managed to get through 115, despite, see what's happening. All this data's coming in that's really bullish, and the market has not managed to take out the prior high. Somebody bought it up there, expecting the dollar to go up, and it hasn't broken it yet. Now, it also doesn't completely confirm a top because the trend is still up, and there is no specific reversal pattern like a double top to say that this is over. But what we're looking at and analyzing here is the sentiment in the market and how the sentiment is starting to get saturated with this dollar bull story. And that's what you'd expect to see at the end of a trend. What we also need to see is the market has been shorting the dollar as it goes up, because that's kind of like a normal market trait where when something goes up, people try to sell it because they think it's too high, but it just keeps going up and up and up. And they have been trying to short the dollar a little more than I would have liked. It's when they actually flip and go long the dollar that I then think we'll definitely see the top. So we need to see the data switch over. And there's something called the commitments of traders that gives us data on the futures market that can tell us a bit more about that. But overall, the dollar is stalling here. But look, I can't rule out another move to the upside, which is a bit frustrating because I think everything hinges on this. And that's why I believe that we still haven't seen much of a move in the crypto market, because we don't know whether it's actually the end of this phase yet. So it's just still bumping along the bottom. Now, if it wanted to go down, normally the market is just sort of, it consolidates and gets ready to go, and then it breaks the low and everything, it gets cleared out very quickly. And there are some cryptocurrencies, we looked at Cardano last week, that's broken down, but others that haven't. It's such a mixed market that it's really difficult to give a sort of clear opinion. We're pretty much back where we were from weeks ago in Ethereum as well. And it did break out of that little triangular constriction, but it then rejected it and went back up again. So we're kind of back to square one, really, just sort of waiting to see whether the market is going to get excited about the prospects of risk on from the equities, and the dollar. If the dollar starts to weaken, I think the pressure will really come on to start buying, and it will just sort of happen all in one go. And to give you an analogy, it would be a bit like, it's been used many times, I know, and I'm sorry to repeat it, but it's actually a really good one. It's when you pull a brick with a rubber band, like nothing happens for ages, and then suddenly, boom, it will go. So that's the sort of kickoff move I'd like to see in the crypto space. But I think we've got to just wait just a little bit longer to confirm that.
Yeah, I like that analogy because we see that so often in markets, because markets keep going a certain direction long after they probably should, and that's a perfect analogy for it.
Yeah, I mean, if there's one thing to take away from this, that if this is the low, and it might not be in equities, and it might not be in the crypto space, it should be in this quarter. And if it does start to go up from here, again, we're not just looking at a couple of thousand points in the Dow. We're looking at a break of the all-time high as we go into next year, of some very powerful trends. It would be very unusual for the crypto space not to go with it. I'd be surprised if it doesn't. It may lag, so then it may be that we need a clear out. We need to break the lows just to get rid of all the positions, and everybody sort of sells out and then thinks there's nothing to see. But I'm more hopeful. I think there is potential, because we've seen the odd altcoin just bump along and then suddenly break out to the upside. I'm hoping that will be repeated, but until I actually see that evidence, I can't say for sure that that's what's going to happen. Hope is not a strategy; it's just an inkling.
Yeah, one of the reasons that I mentioned at the beginning that some people are thinking that the bull run won't happen for 3 years has to do when the Bitcoin halving is. Yeah. And so historically, when Bitcoin wasn't traded extensively, the Bitcoin halving would happen every 4 years. And it was the year after that the major gains happened. I think because it's gone much more mainstream, at least it's not hugely mainstream, but it is being traded by Wall Street and other things, that there are other cycles that determine to a greater extent when things are going to run than just the Bitcoin halving, which is what determined when the bull run would be in the past in the first two cycles of Bitcoin. And so I think the effect of the Bitcoin halving is a lot less than it used to be, and the importance is a lot less. So I think we just got to look at the charts and tell where the real sentiment is. And I think that we're hitting some bottoms. I plan my portfolio around that. Might it take a lot longer to reverse out of that? Yep. And it could even take 3 years. I accept that. It's just not likely to. I think it's going to be sooner. And it might even be very soon, because when the dollar starts swinging down, money should go into risk on assets, the stock market, and then crypto. And crypto's at some pretty significant retracements and bottoms. If people think it's going to go down hugely from here, they're just mistaken on that. Some altcoins have pulled back 99% from their highs, or 99.5%. Bitcoin's pulled back significantly. ETH, all the major altcoins, huge retracements already. They just don't have room to come back like something like Cardano and retrace another 90% from here, barring some massive failure in Cardano's network or something. So I like where we're at. It's hard to know when we're at the bottom. It's kind of like swimming at the lake with the murky bottom, and you reach down and you can feel it's cold down there, but you can't quite feel exactly where the bottom is, but it gets really cold and murky. That is what the bottoms often feel like, and you can't tell exactly where the bottom is till after, when you're looking at the charts.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we try to wait until it's in before actually sort of calling it, and that often means that a lot of money, inverted commas, is left on the table, because really to call a low in Bitcoin here, we'd have to create a double bottom. First of all, we'd have to break this downward trend line that it's very close to. But even if it breaks that, it's not a major trend line. The major trend line comes in here. So it would have to get back above this 25,000. Now we're trading at, 19,000 or so. And if it sounds crazy to wait until it's broken through 25,000 before buying it. And that's why people don't like using technicals. They prefer to buy it on the low or when it's going down. But the problem is we never know for sure whether this is the actual low. We can look at the evidence and put all the pieces together like a detective. But ultimately, that final piece of the jigsaw is when the market responds. And waiting for that response is important. If you're looking at such long-term levels or time frames, then the difference between buying it at 20,000 and 25,000 when it's sort of 100,000 or 150,000 it's not going to make that much of a difference, especially when you're trading in altcoins. But it also, by the same token, if you excuse the pun, which wasn't unintended, the way you've looked at it is that if you're just nibbling and putting small amounts and amounts that you like I did with Decentraland, I bought, wasn't much. It was what amounted to, I think, 500 quid or something. If you're going to trade it over the long term, I'm not going to add anything to it until it starts to go back up. But if you're convinced that the long term prospects are good, then nibbling it here and there as it makes lows, and then getting more aggressive when we get sharp upward trends like that dollar yen trend, when we start to see markets moving like that, those are the times when we get very aggressive and start saying, no, this is where we load the boat, as we've said before, and get ready for some really big moves. So, that we know they're ahead. It's just a question of when, and we've got to wait through these times until they come.
Yeah, agreed. Let's dive into some altcoin picks from our viewers. We have 4 that they suggested that we look at today. If you want to make some suggestions for next week's video, put in up to 2. I will give priority to those that write what they like about them in the comment section and tell me why they like it and why they want it reviewed. But let's take a look at first the Omi token. This is one we followed quite a bit. This is one of my favorites, and I am very heavy in this altcoin myself. Yeah.
So the chart for Omi hasn't changed a whole lot. I mean, we've seen a capitulation low, which I think first off is pretty important. And this rally was whilst everything, the whole crypto space was not doing particularly well. So the fact that it couldn't build on that is a disappointment, but it's actually not that compared to what the rest of the market was doing. It's not that out of whack with pretty much everything else. So if everything was still going up and this was doing what it's doing here, I'd have more of a problem. But it's acting within the kind of characteristics of the space. So in the very short term, it is just consolidating, and I don't see anything that that tells me strongly to either buy it or sell it. It's just a wait. It's had its powerful downward move here, and I'm thinking that this is the start of the next move, and it's slowly retracing back down rather than collapsing back down. I'd like it to dig its heels in soon and then see at least some evidence of the trend moving up so we can jump on board that. But for the moment, for me, it's just a wait. It's fairly neutral here. I wouldn't be, between today and tomorrow, next week, I wouldn't be thinking, oh, if I don't do something, I'll really miss out. So I'm quite happy to wait here. I'd like it to recover this 0.0014 level because there's quite a lot of resistance there. If we just zoom in, you can see. And I don't mind it consolidating either, because that's what causes bases. That's what creates bases, this sideways price action. So if we look at this whole section, which is pretty much from May, it's gone sideways. And when it starts to go up eventually, the double bottom would be formed on a break of this level here. And that would be a strong trend ending signal, probably across the moving averages as well. And we'd be targeting a move back up to the highs. So for the moment, it's a wait, and we're just waiting for all the pieces to fall into place before the trend turns up.
Yeah, the exciting thing for me is the return to the previous all-time high is a 10x from here. And I think there's some fundamental things happening with this token that are really exciting. So this token was birthed like 4 years ago. I participated in the pre-sale of this token. I think it launched 2018, like late 2018. But it's never really had its use case in play, and that's going to be rolling out sometime in the coming 6 months. We don't have an exact date, or at least I'm not aware of an exact date. And when it does, then there's a strong incentive for people who collect the collectibles that they have to hold this token, which before, the only reason to hold this token is you hope that it does well. Well, now, if you're a collector, the incentive will be to also hold a bunch of this token because it will give you additional collector benefits / perks for your account. And so this use case, I'm hoping to carry a lot more people that have a lot of the collectibles. They love collecting, but they have 0 of the tokens to all of a sudden be buying the tokens. And so you just have a shift in sentiment, because then a whole bunch of people are holding it. Then it starts to pump because of that. And then that gets even more people interested in it because the pump is going crazy. So that's what I've been waiting for this one. And that's why I have packed my bags. And at this level, super excited to have it so cheap at this level. It's an amazing price, in my opinion. If I can share my screen, let me share here. Dun, dun. This is Coin Market Cap, and the price history only goes back to when they switched it over from GoChain to the Ethereum network. So there is a lot more price history on that. Coin Market Cap doesn't show it, though. The reason I'm showing Coin Market Cap is because the market cap right now is about 323 million. Now, normally I'm not interested in projects with market caps this high, but I am in this one, very much so. And so where can it go from here? Well, a heck of a lot higher. So from here, 100x would be 32 billion, which is totally possible in a full-on bull market, like blow off top. It could hit actually much higher than that. So especially as their use case comes to play, there are a lot of collectors collecting these. They have some of the best partnerships with Disney and Marvel and DC for some of the top, like Batman collectibles, Spider-Man, Superman. Like
how did they negotiate that? Because that is, I mean, that's so big. It's incredible. I mean, it's incredible that it is where it is now. But if it's 6 months away from realization of this project, then it's a great time. That's amazing intel to know about that.
So they've been rolling out their collectibles for a year and 2 years now, actually 2 years. They had the first Batman on the blockchain about 2 years ago. And so they had been pitching since their launch, and they had gone to DC and other places. Disney waited, right? Disney wanted to wait and see how they were doing. So they launched their first Disney and Marvel collectibles last year. And that's gone really, really well. Disney likes it because every time one sells on the resale market, they get a percentage of that sale.
Oh,
Forever. So they were loving this, and so they've released a lot of Disney intellectual property through Veve. And that's why I'm such a big believer in this project, is they've gotten the traction with the biggest names, and they have the biggest names. They even made a deal with Disney or Marvel to do digital versions of the comic books in limited rarities, right? So sometimes they do 60,000 editions, sometimes they only do 10,000 editions. In one case, they only did 1,000 editions of the comic book. So it's essentially they're NFTs of the comic book, and bringing comic books to the digital world. And crypto, because they're cryptographically encrypted, or the whole purpose of crypto and blockchain is that you can guarantee authenticity. And so their comic books, that it's authentic when you have it, at least the digital release of it. So, and some of them have done really well. I remember when the Marvel #1, which was originally released like back in 1950 or 40 or something, when that came out last year in July, I thought, oh, this should do really cool. And they were selling for $7 a piece. But then on the resale market, after the drop, the common versions were reselling for $3. So I loaded up on a bunch of those. And the truth is, I forgot to just keep coming back and buying more, because I would buy up the floor all the way to $4. And then I'd come back a few days later, buy up a bunch more. And then I forgot to keep coming back. But that pumped all the way to $700 this January, those common comics.
wow.
And so, will ultimately digital comics be a thing? I think they will. Will the first Batman on the blockchain, the first Darth Vader, because they also have Star Wars through Disney, first Darth Vader on the blockchain be a big deal? I think it will be. And so this is the token associated with that project. The collectible side has done incredibly well. And this market cap is no small market cap. 323 million in this type of market is actually still pretty dang high. If it didn't have so much going on, I would say I would not be interested at all, because for the most part, most projects with this high market cap, I'm not that interested in. But considering what they've done, I feel like that market cap, I'm very interested in the token, because I believe it can go a heck of a lot higher.
Do you think you'll be able to read comics in the metaverse? Do you think that?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, because that is also quite exciting, because it means that they will hold the license for that. You can't just get a copy, because they'd know. So
so the question is whether they'll be interoperable. These ones will be interoperable with whatever metaverses, and that's not done now, but that's not to say it can't be done. And so I think it will be. If it will be, these comics will be incredibly valuable. Say the #1 metaverse in the world in the future, say 10 or 15 years from now, that everyone uses, and they're able to integrate with these comics as the very first license releases. And maybe it's an exclusive, that there are no more digital copies of those ever released. I don't know the exact agreement, but those comics will be invaluable to be able to put up on your house. And the cool thing about digital comics is you can actually read them, right? Because in physical ones, if you were to buy an Amazing Fantasy 15, like the first appearance of Spider-Man, you're not going to open it and read it. No way. You're going to keep it in, the protected case where you had like PSA graded it whatever the number is, and you're going to keep it in that case, and there's no way you're going to read it. So what's cool about the Marvels liked about the digital comics is that, people are actually reading the comics in the digital form.
Well, that's nice to hear, because obviously it's that's what they're there for, aren't they? Really, to be enjoyed. So Yeah, great. No, it's fantastic. It makes me want to buy some. Like, that's all I can say.
Yeah, I like the narrative behind this and the story and where it is right now. And that use case hasn't been rolled out. And when it does, you're going to see a lot of the collectors picking up the token. And then the price is going to pump. And then you'll see even more of the collectors being like, oh no, and having that FOMO moment. And that's going to create a substantial enough pump that the rest of the market's like, what is going on over there? And then more people chase into OMI and they figure out what's going on with it. And that gets actually even more people then interested in the app. So I'm excited for the future of this one.
I was thinking about their competition but if they've got the licenses, then the amount of legal work, and I mean, those contracts must be just worth a fortune. I mean, it must have been so hard to actually make those agreements with all those different providers, because they are actually among themselves, that they're in competition. So who else would be able to compete with them? I just don't. They have pretty much a monopoly, unless they're doing this with other other equivalent NFT providers.
Yeah. Let me see if I can open up mine and I can give you a feel for.
Unless they decide to issue them themselves on their own coin or network that then links into the metaverse or some form of metaverse.
These are being minted on the Immutable X blockchain, which I think will be one of the big ones that ends up getting used. So it's been a little bit since I logged in, so it's making me put my information in.
Remembering your old password from ages ago.
Right. Okay. So
password 1234.
Right. I remember those days, right? In the early days of the internet. So see, here's some of their comics. Here's some of their collectibles. Like, what's interesting is this one just released. It did incredibly well. This Miles Morales Spider-Man. And the reason is a lot of the youth don't know Spider-Man as the Peter Parker Spider-Man. That was more like my generation. Miles Morales is the hero that's, Spider-Man in the current cartoons. And so this is a really big deal. In this release. And so there was only, I forget, 10,000 total ones of him released. I was trying to participate in the drop and I did not get it. I'm trying to see if it will let me see all the Miles Morales ones the easy way. I was hoping they'd be near the top. You can always go to brands. Sometimes this doesn't work well on the computer. I go to Spider-Man. There we go. So the very first release of Spider-Man, the secret rare version, is this one. And it's animated. You can put it in augmented reality. And they're currently selling a floor about $7,000. There's only, I think, 1,000 of these, or 999 of the secret rare version. That was the one that happened like last July. I bought 2 of these. I think I paid like $2,200 for one and $3,000 for the other one. They pumped in January all the way to about 85,000. And then since then have retraced back down to 7,000, right? This Miles Morales one is the one that just came out. This is the secret rare version. And it's already gone. If you were lucky enough on the drop to get the secret rare version, because it's a blind box, kind of like opening a card pack where you don't know exactly what you're going to get inside. So if you were fast enough and able to get it right on the drop, you had a chance to get the secret rare version. Those are already now going for 6,000. But that one's pumped. Like a lot of times what happens is right after a really, really popular drop, it'll pump. Like when it first happened, you could have bought one of these for 3,000. It's now pumped to 6,000. Or you could have gotten the ultra rare version, or you could have gotten the rare version. This is the rare one. And so those were the 3 options you could have got out of that blind box.
So trading these in themselves is a skill, knowing which ones to get and which ones you can get and which ones could be valuable in the future.
Yep, exactly. And so think of it kind of like trading cards and other things, except that these do have on your phone, you can put these in augmented reality and take pictures with them and make it look like they're standing next to you and do some cool things with your camera. You can place, like, they've got Ghostbusters, and you can get this Slimer NFT that's like, you know, a 3D Slimer. Let me just change the view on this. Like a 3D Slimer, and then you can have Slimer floating in the air, and you can put the ghost trap beneath Slimer and hit the button on the ghost trap, and it will actually capture Slimer, and it'll show the whole animation and everything, right?
Right.
So some really cool stuff. So will this be able to be used in the metaverse? Comey's talked about doing their own metaverse called the Veveverse, and haven't got details on where that's at or how close that's at. A lot of the metaverse and which metaverse are going to be the popular ones in the future isn't yet determined, but they do have 3D models for this. So they do have the capabilities to possibly in the future interact with whatever metaverses are popular or do their own. And if that's the case, then gosh, these could have incredible value in the future. So that's why I follow the token so closely, and I follow the collectibles. At one point, my portfolio of the collectibles alone was valued at 600,000 back in January when it hit the top. I think it's actually almost 700,000, and since then it's fallen probably 90%. But then it, you know, when the market comes back, it'll go back up again.
So the actual market looks pretty healthy in terms of the trading from what you were showing us there. Is that how you read it, or is it slowed down a little bit? Or
it's slowed down tremendous since January. Right. It's just that this one is so popular and there was such a limited release of them that their price pumped dramatically. I think the original purchase price, if you were to purchase it, let me share this again. If you were to purchase this on the drop, I think the box price was $50. So $50, and you would get one of these three versions. And so the secret rare, there's only 250 total versions of it. This one, there was more. There was up to 1750. So there was only like a total of 3,000, if I'm remembering right, total of these. So there was much higher demand than supply. And so even this one, the most common of the three is selling at a floor price of 235. But what often happens is it'll then retrace. So a big collectible that came out a while ago that I think will do incredibly well is Darth Vader.
Yeah.
And so when this came out, these went all the way up to, I think, 3,000 something. The price of it pumped all the way to 3,000 something. It's now returned down to 793, right? So big retracement.
Yeah, but still holding, given what's been going on in the markets, that's still a decent value. I mean, obviously, if you bought it for $3, you'd be a bit upset, but it's not like it's gone to $20 or something like that.
And this frequently happens. That Spider-Man I showed you that I did so well on, well, initially I didn't do so well because it's hard to tell where the bottom is going to be at. So I bought the first Spider-Man for 3,000. I bought the second one for about 2,200. It then went all the way down to 1,800 before it then went all the way up to over $85,000. And so even now it's still worth above what I paid for both of them, right? So that's great. But some of it's just patience, right? If Veve continues to do well and they integrate this with the most popular metaverses, or they build a really popular metaverse, then these collectibles will have incredible value as flex pieces in the future. And people will say, oh my gosh, you had the first Darth Vader on the blockchain. Oh my gosh, how in the world did you get it? And, you know, they've talked about giving people the ability to rent them to other people. Kind of like, you know, if you had a nice art piece, you could rent it to people. Now, in real world, renting out art is hard because you have to physically take it back. If they did integrate some kind of renting capability, the beauty of the blockchain is your ability to not have to go like physically take it back. The code can just automatically bring it back into your account for you.
Well, then it becomes an asset in terms of making you money. So
yes,
right.
exciting, right? And that will only happen if these end up being like some kind of utility that holding these has value within the Veve collectible space, or if they become such integral flex pieces, or they integrate with a metaverse that people want to display them or have some kind of flex piece displayed, then the rentable value of that becomes worth people spending the money to rent it, and then you'd be able to make money on that. The cool thing about the blockchain is all that is developing the right smart contracts to allow that. So cool. Let's jump into our next one. That's been a fun deep dive.
Yeah, no, I was going to say that's really very, very interesting. That's all the sorts of questions I'd like to have asked about it. And it's just great to get some good answers on it. Fantastic. So thank you.
Yeah, let's jump over to Freeway Token.
Yeah. Here we go. So Freeway Token. I think we looked at it fairly recently, but it's obviously you can see that it hasn't done very much in terms of the overall direction. There's been no clear kind of change in trend other than it's trading around this central pivotal level, and it seems to be attracted to that. But I think what I like about it here is that it has made a low and it is sort of curving back upwards. So we've got this saucer bottom, which has come after this very sharp decline. So I'm pretty sure we pointed out that all the kind of panic selling would have happened around here, and it's recovered that quite quickly. I know there was an incident. I'm getting some memory back of you saying something about that something happened there. But there is some evidence of very gradual rises that it could be building on and accelerate on. I mean, it's fairly neutral here, so I have to stay neutral. But at a push, if it got through this resistance, it would turn from very neutral to a buy. So this is something that looks like it's about to do something, but I'd have to still wait because the bigger picture has been kind of range bound. But a move through this 0.008, just below a cent, there's a lot of resistance there. So if it can get through that, then you might get a small move towards, say, this 0.01, and maybe if it's going to trade even just in a range and everything else is going up, you might get a test of the higher end of this range, which would take it around here to about 0.13, and then it would kind of meet a downward trend line. Bigger picture would have to break that, and we'd have to see some form of changing characteristics to say that the trend is moving higher. But I quite like the symmetry here. I quite like the fact that it is at least gradually moving up in a market that is stagnant. And that's the thing with these things, that they're trading at such fractions that very small amounts, even in a short-term market, can have quite a big effect. But in terms of kind of longer-term picture, I still need something a bit more substantial to tell us that this is properly based. So it would be a short-term trade for the moment. But yeah, I would be staying neutral, but I like that resistance. So yeah, so that's just here, 0.008. If it can get through there, then I think it could have a little run.
Yeah, it's cool to see where it's at. Where the price got savage there was a hack on the bridge. So they didn't actually hack the token. They hacked the bridge that held a bunch of their tokens. And so that bridge, those tokens were then stolen and dumped on the market. That's what caused that price dump. But I like what the price is showing. So for me, personally, I'm not buying more of this because I have so dang much of this. It's actually one of my bigger altcoin holdings by far. Not as much as I have in OMI that we just covered, but I have a substantial amount of this one. And it's a risky play, in my opinion, but a risky play that I really, really like, that has potential to do 100x, maybe if things went really, really lucky, 1000x. And so that's why I hold such a high amount of this, because though it is risky, the potential upside is very, very high. So they essentially, this token is needed to, it's a very interesting concept. So they have a platform where you invest, or you can send funds, and they do derivative trading on those funds, and they return you up to a 43% return on your USD annually, and like 20% on Bitcoin and some of the other cryptos, right? So they do a lot of the gains on a leased algorithm that they're leasing from a company that they won't say. And so this is their platform token. You have to hold a certain amount of this token in order to get the higher returns. Like say you invest 10,000 in stable coins and you put it in what's called their USD supercharger. In their USD supercharger, if you're not holding a certain percentage of your portfolio in these tokens, then you can only get, say, 30% returns on your money instead of up to 43%.
So 43%.
Yeah, I know. It sounds too good to be true, and maybe it is. That's the reason why I put this in such a high risk category, right?
Wow. I mean, what they need is volatility, I would have thought, in the crypto space in order to justify having such a big position, or giving such a big return. But actually, without knowing how their model works, maybe it works better when things are quieter. But that is a very, very large
I did
amount
a
of interest.
recent interview just like a week and a half back. Somebody who wants to see it could click on my channel and look at the back videos. Did an interview with the CEO of Freeway Token or co-founder of Freeway Token. I think he's the co-CEO. So there's two CEOs. And I've done 3 interviews with them so far. And it took me about 6 months of speaking with the team before I invested anything with them. And, I haven't seen the algorithm. I haven't seen where the trading goes on. There's always a risk that, it's fabricated. The algorithm doesn't really exist, and this is a Ponzi scheme. Do I think it is? No, I don't think it is. But there is a company that, when I was in discussions with them, that has a track record of like 70% returns over the last like 30 years. And the suggestion is that, and they could not confirm or deny whether that's the algorithm that they're leasing from that company. So if they're making on average, and that track record is like proven and known, but if they're leasing from that company, then 43% returns makes complete sense.
Okay.
Because
I'm actually going to watch that. I'm going to watch the interview because I'm really intrigued. That sounds fascinating.
Yep. It's a risky play. It could all blow up one day, even like Anchor Protocol, which I think had good people, good intentions. Luna blew up and Anchor then blew up. Like, it's a risky space. So I have money in there that I'm willing to risk that could go to zero. Sure hope it doesn't, but it could. And I would just understand that's part of the risk.
That's part of the game.
Yep, totally. If you're interested, check out the videos on that. I have a link down below too to their platform. Freeway Token is what you're looking for. All right, let's move. So for you, this is a wait.
Yeah.
Okay, let me just find. And for me, I like this price. I've loaded up while it's been so cheap. My dollar cost average price is actually a little bit higher than this. I didn't realize it would come back down to around 0.6 cents. And so for me, I'm really happy with my position on this, and it's quite substantial. In fact, half my tokens I have moved on platform, and on platform you can stake them, and essentially I'm earning some Bitcoin every day. Actually, with the amount that I have on there, with half, I earned 0.01 Bitcoin per day, which is really exciting. I literally log into the platform and I check out my Bitcoin supercharger amount, and it goes up by about 0.01 per day, which is fun.
Wow.
All right. Let's look at our next one, which was
Fina, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that when I put in the code, it worked. First of all, is it this one? Defina Finance.
I believe it is. Yep.
Yeah. Actually, that is not up to date, is it? Let's get back in. So it's
Isn't it
Fina.
funny? They just stopped tracking it in May.
Yeah. So it's definitely Defina Finance.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, yeah, that's it. Okay, because I was looking at that thinking that was just a clear downward trend. So I was wondering why we would be looking at it, but this makes a whole lot more sense because you've had the downward trend and then you've got this kickoff rally, which is exactly what you want at the start of a new trend. So this is looking bullish. I would say that this is a buy whilst it's above this 0.015 level. So as long as it's over 1.5 cents, it's part of a new trend. That's the kickoff point. So we've had a retracement, which is fair enough, but this should be a new trend. Now it doesn't guarantee that it is, but technically, this is it's had its downward trend, and this is the sharp move that should be kicking it off. Now we need to see more price action, of course, but risk reward, I would say, after the first move, you get a retracement. It might come back as far. Like if you wanted to wait for a little bit, I could wait, see if we can pick it up a little bit cheaper. But ultimately, if this is going to be a good long-term play, it's not going to matter within this zone where you pick it up. Where it needs to break out or break through is through this level. So 0.046 has been the high. So very clear resistance point. And above that, 0.06. So between here and here is where the resistance points are that determine whether this is going to be a longer term trade or whether it's just going to be a short term breakout. So that's for me where the problematic area comes, if it indeed gets into that zone. But if it can clear that zone, then we've got a very interesting chart here. So yeah, I really like it, and I really see why you wanted to have a look at it. So that's great. I've got a feeling, did we talk about this a couple of weeks ago? I'm sure we did, and we must have said something about.
Back to your mind. Remember, it was like it throws you off because it's Defina Finance. And so you're thinking it's going to be more DeFi, and there is some DeFi aspects to it. But it's a game, which I think we're going to see more of this merging of like decentralized finance and gaming, right? And so this isn't really the type of game that I like to do. But this one's been brought up a couple times by some viewers, and there are some good things about it. So they launched on Engine Starter, I think. Their Moonwell, Seedify, Obi Ventures. These are some of the investors and launchpads that they work with. Brilliant Capital. I mean, if you look at the price, it did really, really well from its launch, and it ended up peaking at $9. But what you see happen then is a lot of the tokens then vest and come into circulation. And so now half of their tokens are in circulation, or a little over half, 56%. And so combined with the market doing bad, this is right around the time Metaverse or Meta, Facebook made their announcement, and everything Metaverse related took off. And so it pumped all the way to $5 and then all the way to $9. It's now, trading at 3 cents after having touched all the way down at a bottom of 1 cent. So it's interesting. See, here it went not quite to 1 cent, 1.167, pumped up to here, a little bit of pullback. Maybe it comes back down further. I don't know what's going on fundamentally that drove this pump. So this happened early October, probably some big announcement. Now, if it's some big announcement and the greater market doesn't pump, what you often see is that this will return back down and kind of settle for a while. it really depends on what the announcement was. I remember this token Engine during the middle of the last bear market did a partnership with Sony, which was announced, and it absolutely took off. Oh my gosh, they partnered with Sony and Sony Ericsson phones, and it's going to be huge. And it went 10x, only to retrace over the next 6 months as the bear market continued strong. However, if the market itself starts getting some momentum, like we talked about, if the dollar starts all of a sudden weakening instead of strengthening, then a lot of big funds will be pulling money out of the dollar and looking to put it into assets. And so probably the crypto space as well as equities will pump from that. And then you might see this continue further. Let's take a look at the next one. So for you on this price, you said it might be, let me go back to your chart though.
I said a buy. I said I think it's a buy here because it's I mean, it's highly speculative, like you say. I mean, everything is, and we're still not in the, we're still in the, you know, not out of the woods as we were saying before. I know I'm prefacing it a lot because it is a difficult time, but I like the fact that it's got this sharp move. And
sometimes the sharp move is just the initial move, and then there's a second wave that goes much, much higher.
Yeah, I think as long as it's above this level, I'm interested. This 0.0162. If it crosses through that, then I'm like parachuting out. But around here, I think it's sort of, I like to give it a percentage really, where I'd say it's sort of 65% bias to the upside given what it's doing. We will see better opportunities, but that's good enough to have a go.
Cool. For me, it's a way, I just don't understand what it is behind it. Maybe some of our users can comment on this video and let me know. Fundamentally, what caused this pump? What drove the excitement on this? I'm sure there was some kind of announcement. I'd love to hear. Now, it could be that Facebook makes another big announcement and then the whole metaverse stuff like steps up. And this would probably be positioned well, especially with this prior pump, that it would really capitalize on that. Let's take a look at our next one. Oh, Metis.
Yeah. So I think that might be the last one actually, Metis.
Yeah, there was one I forgot to put in here.
Okay. Do you want to put that? Should we look at that first or?
Let's look at Metis.
Okay.
Metis down, and then we'll look at Drife.
Okay. So have I got the right one here? It's $27. Is that correct? Or is
$27.
Okay. Right. So this is balanced, as we can see. It's it had its breakout 18th of July, little base, ran up to this resistance here at 52, pretty much in line with everything else that did have a rally. It's come back again. What I like about it is that it's holding above the prior low. So we've got this support here. It's not come all the way down and is like Bitcoin is trading around the equivalent area of around 15 to 18, which is very close proximity to the previous low. And that's always a danger zone. So it's got a nice buffer there. That's what I like about it. And it's been trying to rally here. So it's got some resistance here. It's been trying to get through that as well. Overall, it's still in a consolidation. Its 27 level is a pivotal point. What I mean by that is it's pivoted below it here and then pivoted over it and then below it again. And now it's going over it. So it's kind of swinging up and down, but at least it's taken a lot of heat out of this downward trend. And for me, it's a neutral position here, but it's closer to becoming bullish than bearish, if that makes sense. So if I had to take a position, which you don't ever have to, but if I had to, I would say I wouldn't feel bad about buying a very small amount and just sort of locking it away and then having a look at it in a sort of month or so. Where things would be, like where the tripwire would be and the warning sign would be if it breaks $21, because there's good support there, like really good support. So I don't want to see it trade below $21, 20 for the round number, because markets tend to like round numbers. If it breaks $20, that I would get very edgy about holding it, and I'd be possibly looking to bail out and look at something else. But for the moment, it's interesting enough for a small position, but I would personally be neutral on it. So I would wait.
Yeah. For me, this is a wait too. So Paul, it's a wait. Now I don't know this project extremely well, or very well, I would say. They're an ETH layer 2 scaling solution. So I do like their chart. You got this big rounded W here, these nice round bottoms. This not going quite as low as that. So I do like that. Their website is, nicely done. Explains what they're doing pretty well. Essentially, it's an ETH smart layer 2 solution, solving the blockchain trilemma without trade-offs. Permissionless, frictionless, boundless. Now, it's not that this isn't a good project. That's not why I don't know that much about it. The reason is there's 18,000 different altcoins out there. There's actually far more than that. There's 18,000 that possibly have some substance behind them. And you just can't keep track of it all. It's too big. And so I don't even try. I used to try to keep up with it. My mind was just drowning all the time. And so is this pretty good? I'm curious to hear what the person who suggested it knows about it, because sometimes you've got some really smart viewers in the audience, and your suggestions, like I value them on what you like about it, because clearly there's something you like about it. I do like that it never returned to its previous lows. I do like that it's in circulation. It's 43% of their supply already. I do like that it's explored really big highs before in the previous. That's interesting. It really did well in January. January, it had a big pump all the way to 314, and it's pulled back from January's pump. There's not a lot that pumped in January. January, just a few things. So December and then January, and it's retraced. I don't know what drove this. That would be interesting to know as well. What drove this big pump and caused it to pull back all the way to here? Like the market pulled it back all the way to here, but it's got an interesting trajectory where it really took off. See, the Facebook announcement was somewhere around here. This didn't really benefit from that because it's an ETH layer 2. Maybe it did a little bit from that market going up, but his big boom happened here, and I wonder what drove that. So if you know anything, put it in the comments. I would love to hear. Let's look at the next one, Drife, because they had some interesting price action this week. And if you want to pull that up on yours.
Yeah, I've got it here.
Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, to say the least, they've had some interesting price action. This is amazing, actually. So clearly there's been some positive news that's come out, and this is obviously one that you've liked for a long time, and I've had to wait until we see some form of reversal. But well done, because you were calling it. But I've needed to wait for something like this to confirm that we've seen a low. Now, remember I was saying that there's some altcoins that are making this sort of sideways move and then this really sharp run, which suggests to me there is still some latent interest in the market generally. And I'm just wondering whether it's going to start to break out and spread into the other markets as well. But overall, this is looking bullish, and I think it would be a buy. What I may see, and this is, you've got to be careful about inventing price action, but this is left shoulder. This could be a right shoulder, and we might need a bit more of a consolidation while the rest of the broader market plays catch up on this reversal. So the fact that it's running so fast and where the overall space hasn't been doing very well might encourage some profit taking, which could bring it down to a correction towards this 0.0009 area. But that should hold as support. So if that turns into an inverse head and shoulders, that almost adds to the long-term potential for this, because that would mean that this whole area here has been a base, and that would encourage a move through this trend line and possibly beyond. So this is exciting, even if it comes back down, which I think is fair enough for a market that's moved this fast. Whilst I would say, whilst it's above this 0.00088 level. Let me just pop that in there so you can see where I mean. As long as it's holding above there, I think it's in a buy zone because it's showing signs of a reversal. So very, very interesting price action. Given how fast it's run, people will probably want to wait before just jumping in. That's a kind of natural thing. So I'd like to see some form of what we call a pennant formation, which is a consolidation where it just sort of goes sideways but stays near the high and then breaks out. That will give a good short-term trade. But I know most people are looking much longer term, and this is very encouraging for the longer term. So, as I say, as long as it stays over this line, I think it's in a buy zone.
Yeah. What's interesting about this price action is how sharp and abrupt it was. Normally you see, and that's why I think it was some kind of announcement, because notice how the curve does not slow down there near the bottom. Like usually you see this roundingness before it takes off, and it was still looking pretty sharp decline, and then all of a sudden boom, takes off, right?
Yeah.
And we just covered it the other day, and I was looking like a week or maybe 2 weeks ago, and I was looking at the price action. I was like, it still looks like it is still heading downwards. And so it must have been some kind of announcement that came out was bullish. Now, I like the story of this. They're trying to compete with Uber and Lyft, but a different type of model. And it is a different type of model. It doesn't necessarily have to be on the blockchain is one of my big concerns with this. But the way they're doing it is interesting. It does involve using the blockchain. And essentially, the CEO of this company, she's a businesswoman from India, and she would travel all the time, and she would use Uber and Lyft and all the different ride-sharing platforms out there rather than a taxi because it was cheaper. But she found as she talked to the cab drivers or, the Uber or Lyft drivers or whatever platform it was, that, sometimes they would say, hey, can you cancel the ride and just pay me, like, I'll give you a 20% discount. And she's like, oh, sure. Why? And, turns out that the company was making so much of that money, the driver was having a hard time making ends meet. And so she thought, well, what if there's a different type of model that would work better? What if there's a different type of model that the prices of rides can come down, and yet drivers can make enough that they're excited that it pulls in a whole bunch of drivers to drive? Because, Uber and Lyft, the driver used to make good enough money that it was exciting. Now, what people have earned have gone down while riding prices have gone up. So what they did was they created a model where essentially the company just makes a small amount of money, the company that runs Drife. Then local franchise owners can own a franchise. Say somebody wanted to franchise the Toronto area, or Toronto's a really big city, so maybe a section of the Toronto area. They have to buy 10 million of the tokens and stake them in order to get the franchise. And so then they can have that local franchise, and they manage all the drivers, the driver satisfaction, making sure that they're doing a good job, firing drivers that aren't doing a good job. The corporate makes a little bit, but then the franchise owner makes some money. And this allows them to cut costs as well, like cut the riding costs, while drivers can make even more. The drivers themselves would pay like a flat rate per month. They'd say pay $150 a month or $500 a month, depending on how many drives they want to do. And so they then get to keep 100% of what they get from giving riders a ride. That $500 then is shared with the local franchise owner, and then some of that up to corporate. And so they pay a flat fee, and then they can say they did the max one that allows them to drive as much as possible. So they pay, say, $500, and then they can do as many rides as they want. And so they're incentivized to then it changes the incentives in a different way. So we'll see if this is ultimately successful. This is the one I told you that supposedly BBC came down and recorded with them I don't know when it's scheduled to air. Maybe it did finally air, but if it was, I'm sure I would have seen a link to it or something already.
Yeah.
So,
I watch them. I watch their main technology program every week for updates in the sector, and I don't think they've mentioned it as yet. I don't think I've seen it.
And we've had Firdosh, the CEO, on twice, so that people can go back in the channel and look for those interviews with Drife, and you can get a feel for whether you like it. I tend to like companies that have some substance behind it. I think she's a skilled leader, and I really like my interview with her. I felt like she had the business acumen and the contacts to make this idea happen. Just understand it's still a risk. Such a high percentage of businesses fail. So the ones I try to look for are ones that I like the leadership. I like their idea that they're doing. Feel like that has a chance to succeed. If you're a crypto investor, think about yourself really as an early stage venture capitalist investor, because you're essentially investing in projects in their early stages, and you're hoping that they'll succeed. The reason why I diversify is because early stage investing is sometimes a crapshoot. You might have a really good team, a really good idea. It might fail because of other reasons. And so diversification helps me balance out the risks, because I don't have to be right on every one. In fact, if I was right on half of them, my portfolio would do extremely well as the rains come back in and crypto takes off once again.
Brilliant.
All right.
Cool,
Paul. Thanks for joining us today. I love your insights. The audience loves your insights as well.
Thank you. I love being here. It's great to hear about all the crypto projects as well, and look forward to seeing more. Very exciting times. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thanks, Paul. Well, yes, the crypto market is still slow right now, though we're seeing some signs of life. We'll see if some of these prices return back and the crypto winter continues, or if these are some signs that things are ready to turn around, and they're about to. Just know that good decisions made during these pullbacks lead to life-changing ones when the market does turn around, and it will. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you. Remember, no rain, no gain. This wrap is for all of you. You know what it's all about. We'll see you soon.
Came into the space, chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, shit, right before you could, was told to buy when it was pouring like a rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss, cause I always make the time in mind. I take the one out, cause I'm patient like that, and I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't lead with my heart. The principles are simple, they're leaving a mark. Buy when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, go parabolic and dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Make the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love, and I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. The time is never better, the time like the present. The next 5 years is a gift, and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, to study and to know that nothing comes easy, but with knowledge the game show. Sticking out this road, cause soon will come a bear market. Learning and growing, and when it's slow will be the target. They say it's come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. Sticking around, the time is better. I'm strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. 2 years time, the ball will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort, cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. Let go of the hate, let the haters be crafting. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love, and I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough. And that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love, and I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.